Welcome to the Radiant Reset podcast. I'm Beryl, and I'm about to share something that I've never told anyone publicly. Just to fill you in on the context before we get into it, I woke up one morning 2 weeks before launching my book, a book that had taken me over a year to write, and a book that nearly broke me to write. And there it was, an email from Amazon. My account has been terminated. Over a year old book cover of one of my old other Amazon books that apparently resembled someone else's. So just like that, everything I'd worked on, gone. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I went into a complete tailspin. So here I was desperately trying to get this book published and finished before leaving for my 3-week trip to Amsterdam, and suddenly I had nothing, no platform. But what happened next changed everything, and it's why I'm here talking to you today. Let me tell you something about writing this book. There were days that I cried so hard I couldn't see my keyboard. The memories came flooding back to me, decades of pain I thought I'd buried. Every single chapter forced me to relive the manipulation, the gaslighting, the constant walking on eggshells throughout my life. The chapter about my mother preventing me from attending my father's memorial, well, I rewrote that 20 times through my tears. But every single tear was necessary, because sometimes you have to feel it all to heal it all. And you know what's crazy? Even with all that emotional turmoil, even with Amazon crushing my dreams 2 weeks before I was about to launch this book, I was determined. I grabbed every spare second between wonderful memories and moments with friends and family in Amsterdam, between exploring those beautiful canals and historic streets. I was there on my laptop, working late into the night, pouring my heart into finishing this book. And people always ask me, Beryl, how do you stay so positive? And the truth is, I wasn't always this way. At 56, I'm finally living authentically, but it's taken me decades to get here. Decades of seeking permission from people who were never going to give it. And decades of building my confidence, because believe it or not, I had none. And let me tell you about the moment that changed everything. The moment I realized that I could no longer deny what I'd actually been running from my entire life. I was about 52 years old, kneeling on the hard concrete floor of our dining room, surrounded by decades of memories scattered in cardboard boxes. We were moving house, and I was drowning in the tedious task of sorting through all the old junk, the old photographs. Anyway, the late afternoon sun streamed through the window, casting long shadows across the chaos of my past spread before me. And my back ached from hunching over box after box, but I was determined to get it finished. My fingers were dusty from handling all the faded memories, and it should have been nostalgic, maybe even pleasant, the kind of trip down memory lane that makes you smile at forgotten moments. But then something stopped me cold. There in my hands were my husband's family pictures, image after image of pure, uncomplicated love. His mother cradling him as a baby, her face soft with adoration, and family holidays where everyone's arms were draped around each other, all naturally. Birthday parties where the joy was genuine, Christmas mornings where the love was so evident you could almost feel it radiating from the paper. And then I looked at my own photos. My stomach lurched as the truth hit me like a physical blow. I frantically shuffled through all the pictures, picture after picture, of my childhood, my baby pictures, my teenage years, family gatherings, searching desperately for just one image of my mother holding me, holding my hand, looking at me with love, or showing any sign of maternal warmth. And there was nothing. Not one photograph existed of my mother embracing me or showing me love. Not one image where her eyes held the tenderness that I saw so easily in my husband's family photos. In every picture, I was either standing awkwardly to the side, or she was looking away, or the distance between us was so obvious it might as well have been marked with like a measuring tape. The realization crashed over me in waves. My chest tightened, my breathing became shallow, and then the tears came. Not gentle tears of sadness, but gut-wrenching sobs that came from the depths of my soul. A place so deep I didn't even know it existed. And that's when it hit me with crushing clarity. My mother had never loved me. Not the way a mother should love her child. Not the way I loved my own son. Not even close. At 52 years old, at that stage, sitting on that floor, surrounded by the evidence of a loveless childhood, I was finally facing the uncomfortable truth that I'd been running from my entire life. You know, what's fascinating about this is the mother wound often hits us hardest in midlife. You might be wondering, if this happened in childhood, why am I dealing with it now? Well, here's why. We're finally emotionally ready to face it. In our younger years, we're too busy surviving, building careers, raising our children, maintaining relationships, and we use all our energy just getting through the day. But midlife brings a pause, a moment where we can finally breathe and look more closely at our lives and at our childhood families and how it all unfolded. This book nearly broke me because it forced me to confront some really uncomfortable truths, like how I'd enabled toxic behavior by not setting any boundaries, especially in my past relationships, and how I'd participated in my own diminishment by constantly seeking approval. How the mother wound had created this endless hunger for love that could never be filled by external sources. I remember being 8 years old, desperate for my mother's approval, trying to be the perfect daughter. But with a narcissistic parent, perfection is a moving target. Nothing you do is ever good enough. You learn to scan faces for approval, to modify your behavior based on other people's moods, and to shrink yourself to avoid conflict. The pattern recognition is what I want you to understand. The mother wound isn't just about having a difficult mom. It's about how that relationship becomes the template for every toxic relationship that follows. Because when your first experience of love comes with conditions, you spend your entire life seeking permission from people who were never planning to actually give it to you. And here's how the mother wound typically shows up in midlife. See if any of these sound familiar to you. People pleasing to the point of exhaustion. So you've built your entire identity around making others happy because that's what kept you safe as a child. You're the one who always says yes, who never wants to disappoint anyone, who feels physically sick when someone might be upset or disappointed with you. Or imposter syndrome. No matter how successful you become, you feel like a fraud because You learned early in life that your worth was conditional. You think you're fooling everyone, and that eventually they'll actually discover that you're not as capable as they think. Or difficulty with boundaries. You feel guilty saying no. You overgive in relationships. You attract people who take complete advantage of your kindness. And you've never learned that no is actually a complete sentence. Perfectionism. Nothing is ever good enough because you learned that mistakes meant withdrawal of love. You exhaust yourself trying to be flawless in everything that you do. Or difficulty trusting your own judgment. You second guess yourself constantly because your perceptions were invalidated so often as a child. So you ask everyone else what they think before trusting your own instincts. Then there's the toxic relationship patterns. This is a big one. You might find yourself in relationships where you're always the giver, or you might avoid close relationships altogether. You attract narcissists, as I did, people pleasers, energy vampires, anyone who can give you that hit of validation that you've been craving since childhood. And perhaps most painfully, you might find yourself still desperately seeking your mother's approval, even though part of you actually knows that it's never, ever coming, at least not in the way you need it or want it. I spent decades in these exact patterns, romantic relationships where I'd lose myself completely, friendships where I'd give everything and receive crumbs in return, work situations where I'd accept less than I deserved because I didn't believe that I was actually worth more. But here's where the story gets beautiful. That Amazon setback, it wasn't defeat, it was actually redirection. Toxic people and toxic situations have one thing in common. They try to silence you right when you're about to actually speak your truth. So being in Amsterdam, surrounded by all the beauty and history, reminiscing about when we used to live there, but at the same time feeling like I was drowning in disappointment. Something in me shifted. The old me would have taken this as a sign that I wasn't meant to actually share my story, especially this one. But here's the thing about healing the mother wound. Once you start choosing yourself, you can't go back. And I realized again that I no longer needed permission. Permission from Amazon, permission from systems, permission to exist authentically, that I didn't need anyone's permission actually. Not Amazon's, not my mother's, not anyone's. So there I was, grabbing every spare moment between incredible experiences with old friends and family, finishing this book with a fire that I'd never felt before, going to bed at 1 a.m. every night. Every spare second became precious. Every word became an act of rebellion against everyone who had ever tried to silence me. No more permission required isn't just my story, it's your roadmap to freedom if you've been involved in toxic relationships. Because I break down exactly how to identify these toxic behaviors before they take hold, to set boundaries that actually stick, and to stop the people-pleasing cycle that's exhausting you, and also to build genuine confidence that doesn't depend on external validation. I reveal the narcissist's playbook, every manipulation tactic they use, the love bombing phase where they make you feel like you're the center of their universe, the devaluation phase where they slowly chip away at your self-worth, the discard phase, where they leave you questioning everything about yourself. Writing about my mother was the hardest part because despite everything, there's still that little girl inside who just wanted her mother to love her. But I realized something profound. I was seeking permission to exist authentically from the very person who taught me that my authentic self wasn't acceptable. And here I am. My book is now published on Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Apple Books, Smashwords, and so many other platforms that actually welcomed my message with open arms. The universe was protecting me from something I couldn't see, redirecting me to where I actually needed to be. So, if you're a midlife woman or man who's tired of shrinking themselves to fit into other people's comfort zones, then this book speaks directly to your soul. If you've been the responsible one, the peacekeeper, the one who always puts everyone else first, it's time to put yourself first. No More Permission Required is available now through my Stand store, also on my Instagram. The link is in the description, and on multiple platforms, as I mentioned. This book is just the beginning of the Radiant Reset movement, which I've started, helping midlife women and men now reinvent themselves and build authentic lives. So if this resonates with you, subscribe to this podcast, follow me on Instagram at The Radiant Reset, subscribe to my Substack and my YouTube channel, and share your story in the comments because I read every single one. The little child inside of you who's been seeking permission all these years, well, they've been waiting for this moment. The moment that you finally choose yourself. The moment that you say no more to toxic behavior. The moment that you reclaim your authentic power. Your healing journey doesn't require anyone's permission. It just requires your courage to begin. And if I can do it at 56, finishing a book in spare moments between exploring Amsterdam after everything fell apart, so can you. No more permission required at all. Let's heal together. Your authentic life is waiting. So thank you for listening to the Radiant Reset podcast. And if this episode resonated with you, please subscribe, as I say. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And remember, you're not too old, it's not too late, and you're definitely not alone on this journey. So, until next time, keep choosing yourself.